Okay, so welcome to the Path to KOL. This is a podcast in which we discuss and interview and speak with leaders in their field, in their craft, in their work. So today we have the distinct honor of having Sam Libby with us today. He serves as President and Managing Director at TCB Capital Advisors. He has dedicated his entire career to the healthcare sector with a strong passion for advising companies and their leadership teams to drive operational initiatives and execute strategic transactions. Sam is deeply committed to improving patient outcomes, and his professional experiences highlighted the critical unmet needs facing healthcare today, such as patient access, quality of care, and affordability. Throughout his career, Sam has completed over 30 transactions, including mergers and acquisitions, debt and equity capital markets, convertible notes and private capital raises, totaling more than 20 dollars. He has extensive experience working with companies across the care services sectors. Under his leadership, TCB quickly carved out a niche by integrating banking professionals with commercial experts, strengthening its market position. The firm has facilitated numerous transactions, including capital raises and M&A, and expanded its team to encompass banking and strategic advisory services. This growth enables TCB to provide comprehensive guidance across the industry. Additionally, TCB has built a robust network of investors and strategic partners, fostering connections that support successful client outcomes and exits. When needed, Sam took on the role of Chief Business Officer at New Day Diagnostics, where he led the corporate development and strategy team in close collaboration with the CEO, Executive Chairman, and board. He played a key role in refining corporate strategy and managing vital financing and M&A initiatives. Sam significantly increased New Day's valuation through strategic actions such as fundraising, a merger, and an acquisition. During these efforts, he skillfully negotiated with lenders and led fundraising campaigns targeting internal stakeholders and high net worth individuals. The strategic insights were vital in guiding the company's management toward operational efficiencies. Sam also managed thoroughly with due diligence potential deals, ensuring detailed evaluations of financial, operational, and cultural factors, and handled emerging challenges effectively. Notably, he co-developed the Parallel Study, an innovative project designed to utilize existing samples to dramatically reduce the data release timeline for potential investors and acquirers. Having accomplished his objectives at New Day, Sam exited full-time and shifted his focus back to building TCB. What a remarkable story. So Sam, it's good to have you with me today. It's really good to chat with you. Glad you reached out. It's an honor. So as we get started, what keeps you going? You seem like you do a lot. Before we get into questions, what keeps you going?
Well, David, thanks for having me on. Honor is all mine. I think if I was to take that entire bio and boil it down to the one important thing that keeps me going, it's at the end of the day, specifically because we're focused in healthcare, the goal of the stakeholder who benefits the most is the patient. And so, corporate transactions or M&A or IPO, those things are all great. And it's great to be able to say, I got another deal done. But if it doesn't impact patient outcomes, if it doesn't help people that are suffering improve their care, be it a lower mortality rate, a better quality of life, then I'm not sure what we're all doing here. I think the focus is to help people. And it just happens that my skill set, the skill set of the majority of my team and my colleagues that I work with is on the financial side, but it doesn't change what the goal should be for at least my view, for me, for anybody. It's to help everyone who's around us and even the people we don't know.
Yeah, sounds good. So how did your early studies in finance and accounting at Rutgers shape your approach to healthcare investing?
So I loved Rutgers, and it's been great to see how the university and the network has changed, because when I went there, Rutgers was a non-target school. So it was not the investment banks were not really recruiting directly from Rutgers. So the network that you had and that you could get from, alumni was the only way you were going to get into investment banking, hedge funds, private equity, front office finance at all. Um, and so I think for my internship, I applied to 300 internship programs and got one offer while I was still a student. And then when I was graduating, I graduated near top of my class. I did really well. I loved my studies. I loved the academic environment,
Mm.
and I couldn't get into front office finance. So I started off in a more back office role, and then networked into a banking healthcare role. But there was a couple of things that I got from Rutgers. One, because it was hard, especially at that time, to break into kind of banking and front office roles, you really had to hustle, and you had to network, and you had to get to meet people, and the social capital became something that I understood the importance of, and that's transferred to everything else I've done. I mean, the majority of the clients that we've brought on to TCB since we founded the company have been companies that I've known for years. And so the kind of like being able to one, establish that relationship, being willing to, kind of jump off the ledge when you don't know exactly what you're going to say to someone. You're, just about to graduate school, and you're like, I'm going to talk to this professional who's been working for 10, 15 years. What am I going to say that's valuable? But you just kind of keep putting yourself out there and keep putting yourself out there, and it builds that reflex. And then you just start to develop relationships that pay off, dividends over the length of your career.
Yeah, that sounds good, man. That sounds good. Being able to work the social capital that you have and optimize it so that it contributes to your strategy and your plans. Yeah, that's very good. So, can you share a defining moment or transaction early in your career? You could be general, that solidified your passion for advancing healthcare innovation.
It's a it's a really good question.
Or can you share an experience in school, rather, that helped you solidify your passion for advancing healthcare innovation?
Yeah, so there's two that stick out to me. One is the first deal I ever completed, and that one was more just there's this element of like, especially when you're early in banking, you work in a lot of transactions that fail, and so you might have like seven, eight, it could be 12. Everybody's different of deals that you've worked on that have gone from pitch to pulling together the deck to going out to market, and then somewhere along the way they just aren't successful, and then you complete one, and it's such a wonderful feeling of a sense of accomplishment. And that's one on like the okay personal accomplishment, I got the deal done. The one that I would say though that really ingrained my passion on the healthcare side didn't happen until much later, where a family friend of mine, their mother developed breast cancer, and it was a very complicated case. And we were able to introduce them to some people that were helpful in the, I guess, their treatment journey, I would say. And I wish it was the happiest story I could give you, and suddenly we connected the dots to the right person, and the person was better. And that's not the case. And that's not the case for a lot of patients. The ending to the story a lot of times is a tragedy. And because it's a tragedy, it's easy to erase the humanity of it. And so that experience, reminded me specifically in healthcare and for professionals that work as obviously like front office, front line care workers. They know these stories. You don't ever have to remind them of what it's like to see someone pass away. I mean, they're in the hospital setting, they know this, they know why they go to work in the morning. But then all of the consultants and bankers and accountants and everything else that service the healthcare sector, it's very easy to get detached from what those numbers on the screen really mean. That's a patient, that's a life, that's a mother, that's a father. And that example, and it wasn't my only example of experiencing, people getting sick or watching somebody go through that. But it was one of the ones where I got to see it from both sides. I got to see it from regular communication with the family member that was helping them navigate care. I knew the person that was ill, who is absolutely one of the most wonderful human beings on the planet. And, it reminded me why we're here and why what we do matters.
I agree with you. It's important to have not only a set of ideas, but also have your ideas tied to values and tied to the stories and the people that you're impacting. So I think that's very, very important, especially in healthcare. So what key criteria do you use when evaluating a novel diagnostic or therapeutics company for investment?
First thing,
that journey, even if it means you talk about your plans, like getting up, having a good breakfast, walk us through the day. What does that look like for Sam?
So, the entire team that I work with lives and breathes our single goal, which is we want to be a participant in impacting 100 million human lives. That's what we want to do. That's our goal. And it's the mission that we've set down for ourselves. We figured 1 billion served was a little bit too large and taken by McDonald's already. So the number one thing is this, like when we're looking at a novel company, is the indication that they're focused on underserved? Are there patients dying that this technology can help live longer? Are there patients that are having debilitating conditions that limit their quality of life that can be made better? That is the first criteria. Everything else comes from that. So that's why we spend a lot of time in cancer diagnostics, because cancer therapeutics continue to evolve and they are great and a ton of money goes to them. And the diagnostic side, we've all seen headlines of this innovation and that innovation. When you look at therapeutics and diagnostics, especially with cancer, and obviously each indication is different, but the therapeutics get a lot more of the funding than the diagnostics do. And the diagnostics, getting investors to get excited about it can be quite challenging. And so innovation can be stifled. But if we're not catching it early enough, we can't treat it. So, that's kind of the first thing. It's like, one is, are there patients suffering? Two is, thankfully, I work with scientists and clinicians that are much more intelligent than I am and have many more letters after their name than I do. And we go to them with the science and with the clinical work that's been done and get their opinion on it. Because I can think that something sounds like the best idea in the world, and the CEO can have the best pitch. And if I give it to one of our clinical or scientific advisors and they look at it and go, there's no clinical data. This is a cool concept. It's a great science experiment. They haven't actually done any of the work in the lab. You get to a challenging point, especially in the environment right now where grant funding is challenged and things like that. You need hard clinical data to be able to get investors to have confidence, to be able to move something forward towards eventually, getting to the patient or, being utilized by the provider. So those are I think the two criteria is lead with the patient impact and then the science.
Okay. Yeah, man, that's very, I appreciate you sharing that, being able to understand how you're going to compartmentalize, if you will, or like organize your frame of thought when you're dealing with investing in companies. So how do you reconcile a company's patient-centric mission with the financial rigor required by investors? And to make this, tack on another piece to this question, what areas are kind of hot now for investing? What areas are, what would you say is a hot spot? Is it radioligand therapy? Because that could kind of play a role in therapy space, and also diagnostic radioligands could play a role in diagnostic space as well. What's kind of hot now, and also how do you reconcile people's focus on patients with what's required financially by investors?
Yeah. And they're both great questions, and I think they overlap in a lot of ways. So, one of the things is there is the old model for a lot of things in healthcare, which is we have to charge as much as humanly possible, and then we're going to make a lot of money. Like that was the old model. Diagnostic tests that cost $3,000 and things of that sort. The trend towards accessibility. And I think a lot of that came out of the pandemic. the pandemic was terrible in a lot of ways for a lot of people, but it forced innovation on accessibility. I mean, the fact that Zoom is now a norm is like the simplest thing that everyone sees. But on top of it, we all got used to having greater control and greater access to diagnostic testing and to healthcare data. And because of that, not all companies have evolved in the same way. Some of the companies are still dinosaurs, and they think the only way to make money is to charge as much as humanly possible and basically create a moat around healthcare to anyone who can't afford $1,000 out of pocket. But the majority of companies have realized that they're now touching more patients than they ever did before. And so, because again, accessibility has become a thing. And so there's a much bigger market patient-wise than there ever was. And the messaging is expected from the healthcare and from the healthcare stakeholders, be it the facilities, the physicians, they all expect an understanding that we want to get this out. And when you talk to launch partners, so like hospital systems or facilities, you say, we want to launch this new test, we want to launch this new offering, they start talking about their charity care patients. They start talking about accessibility for those that can't afford out-of-pocket pricing. So, that's now part of the ethos of, I think, what we all do. And that evolution has been helpful. And as far as, what are the hot sectors or things that we're looking at, and now I'm going to bring up the AI buzzword because, it all happens and it could be 5 minutes into the conversation it's supposed to happen. But the area that I really like, so AI and machine learning in diagnostics is nothing new. Historically, it's been, deeply ingrained tech, and it's more applied AI. It's less patient focused. But the bar to AI tools or AI platforms is much lower now because of just the accessibility of technology. That being said, there is so much noise, especially in healthcare, about this new AI platform and this new AI platform, and there's like 100 every way you look. The ones that interest me are the ones that have been around for 8, 10, 12 years, some even, 3 or 4, but they're coming out of a hospital system and they have a deep level of clinical data. It's funny because it's new and it's the same as it's always been, which is the companies that are built off of clinical data, off of real application and real use are the ones that are going to be successful. You can have the best idea and be, a 22-year-old coming out of grad school or undergraduate, depending on how quick you went. And if you cannot get access to the clinical environment you need to actually train your models and to be able to refine them, you're just not going to be able to compete. And so when I think about it, AI has leveled the playing field as far as the ability to create these amazing diagnostic tools and amazing, patient access portals and things of that sort. But for me, it's always going to be about, you have the tech stack, you have the usability, you have the market that you're going to be going after. And on top of it, what is the underlying clinical data that you built your models on? How deep is it? Is it your sample 100 patients? Well, that's not enough, because in reality, you need tens of thousands of patient, be it images or results from diagnostic testing, whatever you're going to train it on, to really understand even how your performance is. So, for me, love the AI innovation, but it still goes back to the oldest thing in healthcare, which is clinical data.
Yeah, I hear you. You need to have the data, you need to have the evidence to support trying to propose. Yeah, so how do you reconcile, actually, as the first FDA-cleared AI breast cancer risk platform for Clairity, what were the biggest hurdles that you had to overcome, or what were the greatest accomplishments that came about from navigating that process?
So I've known Jeff Luber, the CEO of Clairity, for a number of years, and him and the founder, Connie Lehman. Connie Lehman comes out of Mass General. She's one of the leaders in women's imaging in the country. They're both brilliant individuals and also wonderful human beings. So we've been working with them for a bit in more of an advisory capacity. And what they have done is really set the standard for how the FDA will evaluate platforms like this. But again, Connie Lehman, Dr. Lehman, is one of the people who helped write the guidelines for how we would treat and screen high risk patients who are high risk for breast cancer. And so really she has now come out with, her company and answered the question of how do we identify who is a high risk patient for breast cancer, who needs additional screening, because current methodologies aren't working. If they were, 34% of breast cancer wouldn't be found in stage 3 or later. And they work through gathering an immense amount of data through mammograms, working in partnership with imaging companies and the like. So, I think it's amazing to see what they've done. It's amazing to see the recognition that they've received since getting their FDA clearance. And it's really going to be amazing to see just where Clairity goes over the next couple of years. But, I will always bet on Jeff Luber. He's done amazing things in the past, and he continues to do amazing things today.
Yeah, man, that's good. People are important in terms of collaborations. So talking about collaborations, breakthroughs often require alliances across academia, industry, regulators, and payers. How do you help portfolio companies forge and sustain these partnerships? And what potential role do you see in educational institutions when it comes to partnership?
Yeah. So it's interesting because when you think about the design of these companies and their offerings, if they don't factor in all of the stakeholders, there's a challenge. I mean, there's another company that we work with, Altoida, and they have an offering in the neurodegenerative space, which is an extremely challenged space. The amount of time from when somebody starts to develop symptoms to the time in which they can get a cognitive assessment and a diagnosis is insanely too long. I actually diligenced that pathway myself, going from primary care to a memory center to, go through all of the testing, and it takes a really long time. And so the reason I bring this up is, an example of action, currently happening is when they design their offering, it solves the need of the patient, a quick diagnosis, speed up the time that a patient can say, I'm having a problem, to I know what's wrong with me. 2, it looked at where the choke points are in the provider system. So, the choke point was getting into the specialist, getting into the memory center is very difficult. So, okay, let's empower primary care and standard neurologists to be able to run this test on the Altoida platform. So then, okay, great, it solves the issue for the providers earlier in the patient life cycle. But now you have the specialist issue at the memory center. They say, hey, you're taking revenue from me, but you're not, because Altoida's platform over time will be able to be used for patient monitoring. You screen them originally, then you measure the decline of after they have a diagnosis. You have to continually reassess what the slope of the decline is. How are they progressing? And so now the specialist can now do monitoring in a way that's quicker than a traditional cognitive assessment. And you say, okay, who are the other stakeholders? The payers. And everyone villainizes the insurance companies, and they may be wrong or they may be right. I don't know. I'm not here for that judgment. I'm here to say, if we create the incentives the right way, we can get them to provide in solving the problem. And what is the issue that the payers have with the current status of neurodegenerative treatment? They don't know if the drugs are working, and the drugs are expensive. And so by the provider at the specialist level implementing patient monitoring, you can also now go back to the insurance company and say, this is the result of the drug that you're prescribing, that's being prescribed, that you're paying for. And now the payer gets more data, and they get to evaluate which drugs are more effective for the patients. And so because their entire platform, the Altoida platform, is built around all of the stakeholders, not 3 of the stakeholders at the expense of 1 stakeholder, they're going to get greater buy-in. And then it's beneficial to even the pharma companies that are running clinical trials for these drugs. again, they get more data, just like the payer. They get to see what's working, they get to see what's not working, and they get to see it quicker. A pharma company would rather have a drug fail in phase 1 than in phase 3. We all know that. And so more data, faster data, better data gets them there. And so, it's not every day where you have a company that's designed something that does take all of the stakeholders in mind. This just happens to be a win-win-win-win-win.
Oh, this is very good, Sam. Sam, you sound like you have a lot of strategy, a lot of strategic thinking, a lot of strategic thinking, man. This is very good. So, like, as we on a lighter note, what's a typical day look like for Sam? How does Sam start his day? What advice can Sam give in terms of people who want to do what you do, or who are in like pharmacy programs or like medical programs and aspire to have at least some type of expression in your space, whether it be investment or showing up as a potential company? What does it look like? How does a day look like for some? And for people who are interested in leadership roles beyond the lab or clinic, what strategic steps should they take to function similarly in the way that you do?
So the one thing that I'll say specifically with a view on people, students who are in medical programs or pharmacy programs, I think they really undervalue the options they have in their career. And I understand why. You go through undergrad, pre-med, go to medical school. Like the only thing you're thinking about is becoming a doctor. But there are, and pharmacy programs, extremely competitive. And for both of those degrees and both of those educational tracks, financial services firms, pick them up because like I was lucky enough, I got trained. My first MD was a physician. One of my later directors was a former researcher, and a PhD. So I got to learn under clinicians and scientists, and they understood things at a level that I'm never going to. And that's fine. That's not my skill set. But there is a desperate need for pharmacists and med students get picked up by pharma, by CROs, by financial service firms, by hedge funds, by private equity. So actually the options for them are huge. And when I think about kind of developing the skill set, your first few jobs, and especially the first few years, are all about your toolkit, and that's it. It's putting yourself in different situations to wear different hats. So you can say, okay, I know how to do contract negotiation. I know how to work through. I know how an IPO works. I know how an M&A deal works. So you kind of learn these different skills. And so where we all start and where we end up, we never know. We don't know what 20 years from now is going to look like. And then the one piece of advice I give everybody who's who's early in their career is find a hobby that gives you some sense of challenge and fulfillment, because so many people make the mistake of it. And I'm sadly a workaholic. I should probably get more work-life balance. But like when I was early in banking, I was working 17 to 20 hours a day, to the point where it was very unhealthy and I'd get sick all the time. But that was what was expected at some of the firms I worked for. And I always say your job is never going to give you that sense of accomplishment on a day-to-day basis, because some of your projects are long-term and some days are really hard and some failures really hurt. But like for me, I go on cross-country motorcycle rides, and there's an element of challenge. It can be very difficult, and accomplishment when you get to see some of the most beautiful things that are out there in nature. And I mean, I'll be on the road for a week here and there, or even just if I'm looking at going to Big Bend in Texas, and that'll be like 10 hours each way, and I'll camp. And so like finding those little things where they're not work related and they're about you and they're about scaling a mountain, metaphorically or literal, so that you can find that kind of challenge and accomplishment, because that for you personally will spread into your career. And then, I mean, day to day, I have a 5-month-old right now. So day to day is really work or him.
Yeah, man, that's good, man. Sam, this is so good. I'm so glad we were able to take the time to chat. So once again, this is Sam Libby, a leader in the financial investment space when it comes to healthcare and healthcare companies. It's definitely a privilege and an honor to have you on today. So thank you again for joining me.
Thanks for having me, David. This was a real fun conversation.